I don't think you can be a good seller if you don't understand the science of selling and the reason that people are buying.
So what can you tell me about the primacy bias and how salespeople can use that?
The primacy bias is probably something I think all salespeople have, fallen victim to.
And it starts to become a big debate of, do you want people to be motivated intrinsically or extrinsically?
A lot of these biases happen even before you've opened your mouth. What you should be doing is considering your first impressions and making them count.
Hello and welcome to Sparks, the podcast by the Sagos Group. My name's Millie Gladstone, I'm your host, and I'm one of our senior learning consultants based here in our UK office. And in the studio with me today, in the matching outfits, I have to say I feel a little bit left out, but I didn't get the memo. But I have with me Simone Sullivan and Reuben Fletcher-Louis, both of our learning consultants here in our London office as well. Welcome both.
Thanks for having us.
That was almost said in unison. You guys are literally like twins today.
We are.
So before we get started on the content that we're going to be looking at, which is all about the science of selling, just give us a little intro to yourselves. What do you do day to day? What kind of clients are you working with? Simone, do you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. I am one of the consultants here at Sagos UK, which means my role is designing a lot of learning and development content. Mm-hmm. But as part of that, I also work very closely with different clients to sell in those learning and development solutions. So as a consultant, your role is very much doing the designing, but also the working closely with clients to essentially sell those different products.
Mm-hmm. Reuben, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. It's great to be here. So I'm a learning consultant like Simone, which means I do all of the same kind of things. I've actually got quite a new and fun client. Not a huge one, nothing crazy. But last week I was out in Milan delivering a workshop with them. And it was in the most beautiful place. The town was called Morimondo. And
you're definitely just telling this story to show off your Italian accent.
I was learning Italian from my Italian colleagues, and that's quite cool. I come from a background in behavioural science, which we hopefully might see might lend itself nicely to this topic, but we shall see. And otherwise, a lot of sport, a lot of sports coaching, sports playing. If there's a racket or a ball, I've probably tried it.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And thank you for being here as well. So, as I said, we are looking today at the science of selling. And I know that both of you have got articles on this topic in our latest magazine, the Imagine magazine. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about the topics that come up there. But yeah, really thinking about the science that we can leverage as salespeople, as consultants alike, in the world of sales. So what I want to start with is basically what kind of science are we actually talking about? So obviously a very broad term, but just to open us up, to set us on the right track, what sort of science are we talking about mainly in these topics and on this podcast today?
Well, I was just going to jump in because Reuben was saying that he also has a background in neuroscience. Behavioral science. I have a background in psychology as well. So I think what we're talking about today is a little bit the psychology of selling, which comes into it. That's why they brought these two experts on behavioral science and psychology.
Yeah.
But also I think the neuroscience behind selling and buying as well. Mm-hmm. Anything to add?
So for me, I think if you look at the big picture, if you're a salesperson or a sales manager, and I'm biased because I'm coming from a background in behavioural science, but there are some key behaviours you need to show, right? If you have a sales target, there are key behaviours to hit that target. It might be meeting people, that's a behaviour. It might be putting together a proposal or winning a pitch. Behind all of these things that you need to do to be a successful salesperson, there are key behaviours. And if you're a sales manager, you probably have some of your own behaviours, but you're also very much looking out for the behaviours that you see in the people you manage. So when I think about this kind of topic, and I'm biased, but I like to look at it from a lens of what are those behaviours and what's the science? That's what my degree was all about. It's how can we understand a behaviour, think about why it happens, think about what we can do to change it. And it's not an exact science, it's psychology. We can't see things. You can't actually look at the mechanistic A to B reaction in a behaviour. Unfortunately, I wish you could. But you can start to wonder, what are the factors at play and what can we do about those?
Fab. So we've got behavioural science, we've got some neuroscience, some psychology. It's going to be a jam-packed episode. Okay, so if there are any salespeople watching this, which hopefully there are, why should they care about science? What advantage can it bring them?
I don't think you can be a good seller if you don't understand the science of selling and the reason that people are buying. So I think I actually have a background in teaching as well as psychology. But if you don't, it's kind of similar to that. If you don't understand the science of why people learn, you can't understand the science of how to teach them. So it's the same with if you don't understand why people are buying, you're not going to know how to sell to them.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So understanding kind of what's going on almost behind the scenes sometimes, as we're going to look at in the minds of the people that we're trying to sell to and how we can leverage that. Great. Reuben,
So interesting.
anything to add?
I hadn't even thought about the buyer. I'd totally been thinking about the salesperson and the manager.
Okay, well that's good. A couple of different angles to come out in the pod. Great.
I think for me, what it comes to is, if it's in this context, for me, science is the truth about how something happens. It is the how, the why. It's explaining behind something, why it's going on. And if you can't understand why something is going on, a behaviour you're seeing, or a buying signal, or all of these things, that it's super interesting, in my opinion, but also very important to understand. If you don't understand the science, you can guess, you can trial and error, you can try out a new technique, you can use different language, you can try and be more confident, you can do all these things as a salesperson which might work, you're kind of guessing. If you think about the science and why things happen, you can have a better guess.
Mm-hmm. And what about for sales managers? Is it kind of the same sorts of things? Obviously, they are still probably selling, so they're still thinking about the buyer, maybe like you were, Simone, but in terms of kind of how they maybe approach their team, is there more science that they can leverage there?
I think for me with sales managers, I was mostly thinking about it from the perspective of managing their team, like you say.
Yeah.
Like, it's how can they understand the psychology of the people they manage?
Yeah.
And the psychology of that team dynamic. There's so much psychology in a team of people, 5 high-performing individuals who have got to perform even higher together, but also the amount of psychology in one person. Like, that's what psychology is. It's why that person is that person, why they do what they do. Can you imagine if you're a sales manager and you understand all that? Like, that's just a bit crazy. You never can understand everything, but if you can understand a little bit, can you motivate them better? Can you inspire them to sell a certain way or do a certain thing? A tiny bit of understanding of their psychology can help massively.
So this is kind of what we're going to be getting into a little bit later. So that was a spoiler alert for anyone listening. No, not at all. I think we're going to focus on salespeople first, which Simone, probably most of the answers will come from you. Of course, we'll jump between the two of you and then take a little look at managers in a bit as well. So we get a nice balanced and holistic view from all angles.
Wonderful.
So Simone, you were talking about neuroscience earlier. What can salespeople learn from neuroscience?
Neuroscience is one of those things in psychology which starts to become a little bit more exact, starts to become a little bit more seen.
Probably the most quantifiable or provable, right, of all the sciences that we're talking about here. You can actually see how brains change and react, can't you, right?
Like,
from the neurons.
Completely. I was in a workshop the other day talking about confidence, and because our synapses prune, I think is the right phrasing.
Prune? Like a garden.
As
like
people, humans, we prune our synapses until a certain age. And that's like a really cool trait that we have, which means that there is a synapse somewhere. So neuron, synapse, neuron, synapse. Did that the wrong way, but there's a neuron, there's a synapse, there's a neuron, there's a synapse.
This is great for everyone that's listening along and can't see your hand movements.
Essentially, because we synaptic prune, you can change behaviours. You can become confident in something you weren't confident in.
Oh yeah, you can
change your
form
beliefs.
new neural pathways, can't you, and learn new things.
Exactly.
That's why scrolling on TikTok is so bad for you. So go on, Simone, what can salespeople learn from neuroscience?
I think what salespeople really need to know is that while it's probably upsetting to hear that most people are buying from a place of emotions, not logic. So you really need to understand that you're selling to people's emotion and their kind of unconscious bias first.
We always say people buy from people that they like, and like that's not really just disproving our podcast here. The science of selling. It's all about emotion, guys. Put the science to the side.
There's science to emotions, though, I think,
yeah.
and being aware of those biases can help. But I think even, it feels like inauthentic, I suppose. It feels like you're kind of lying to people, but I think it's just an awareness of those biases and what you're bringing to the table when you are selling.
Yeah, and I think as well, sometimes, you know, trying to influence people gets a bit of a bad rep because people think that they're, you know, manipulating by drawing on those biases. But actually, I think it's good for salespeople to remember that it's how you would deploy that in real life in general. Like, you want to get on with your neighbours, right? So they take in your parcels when you're not in. You've got to, on some level, appeal to be likeable to them. It's the same thing when you're with a customer, that you want to be friendly and be approachable and smile. All those simple things can help them like you, appeal to their biases of, oh, what a nice smiling friendly face, I want to buy from that person.
Definitely. And to some people that comes more naturally than others, which is why I'm like, if you're authentic, I think it helps.
Yeah, definitely. So let's maybe explore some of those specific biases in a bit more detail and through a sales lens. So what can you tell me about the primacy bias and how salespeople can use that?
Yes, the primacy bias is probably something I think all salespeople have, you know, fallen victim to, or even buyers as well. But it's essentially, it is when you're given a selection of different options, you tend to like the first one most or put more kind of weight on the first option that was presented to you. So if you're a buyer, it means kind of the first thing that you hear, you're kind of thinking about that, and you it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the options. If you're a salesperson, you can use this to your advantage in a way, because you want people to like you, want people to respond well. So when it comes to providing options or things that people can select from, you want that first thing to be the best offer. So people are more primed to like the next things that they hear. So, that's primacy effect, the first thing that you hear.
It's so interesting, isn't it? When we were looking at flats, you'd often get shown by the estate agent a really, really terrible flat first that was on that for like a cheaper price in the area that you're kind of looking in. And they would take you around and you'd be like, oh, cracked walls and uneven floor and this is horrible. Why are they showing me this? And it's basically because of that. So then when you go to the next option, the next flat, by comparison, it could be a bang average flat, but because you've seen that terrible one before, you're more likely, apparently, to be kind of wowed by it, even though it's a pretty average flat.
Yeah, I think the first thing sets the tone. And I think I was saying, you know, provide a good option first, because that's what I'd want to do, is provide 3 good options. You know, I'm not I'm not a real estate agent. I know they're more probably sneaky than I am. But I think, that usually the first thing that you see is going to set the tone.
Yeah, for sure. You kind of get anchored in, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
Especially when it comes to prices as well, I feel like. If somebody gives you one price, that's then the relative point that you're always referring back to as well. So when it comes to negotiation. I
was going to say also in terms of primacy, people have a tendency to remember kind of the first and the last thing that they're offered as well. So it works in that way that if you want your kind of offer to be memorable, you might want to present it first or last. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, when you're doing like group presentations or something and people are always like raising their hand to go first, there's actually some good, you know, science behind why you should do that to be more remembered.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so that was primacy bias. What about snap judgments? Tell us about that, Simone.
I mean, I think snap judgments are exactly what it sounds like, and I think we're all victim to this. It is making assumptions or judgments about an individual based on initial what you're seeing, the first things you see in a person. So these are definitely biases that we have, and it might be about the way somebody's hair looks, the clothes that they are wearing, the body language that they are giving off sends signals that make us feel, I guess, snap judgments about that person. Sometimes they can be positive, sometimes they can be negative, but it's about having that initial reaction to somebody.
So what does that mean for a salesperson?
I think when looking at this, I think it's more from the buyer's perspective about how they perceive the salesperson. Yeah. And I think it comes back to that maybe authenticity. It's like you want to, as a salesperson, consider what snap judgments people might be making about you. So how are you presenting yourself? Is it with confidence? Is it with credibility, in authenticity, to make that buyer, I guess, feel like there's somebody that they can trust?
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic.
Interesting.
And then what about attunement?
What were you saying before about, what were you saying? It was really interesting. Yeah, you were saying something about people liking you.
This whole thing is so interesting.
It's
learning.
essentially mirroring the person that you were with.
Yeah, nice.
And we do this without noticing, but it's if somebody is, being friendly and smiley towards us, we are likely to reciprocate that. We are attuned to each other, and so we tend to kind of, mirror each other in that respect. So when it comes to selling, again, thinking from the perspective of a salesperson, you want to be making people feel that it is a calm, welcoming, friendly space, and kind of mirroring that. But also, if from a salesperson perspective, you want to be mirroring your buyer. If they are showing, maybe reservations, maybe you might think about, okay, what am I doing, and how can I attune to them and respond to them? So by making them feel more reassured or more calm in that situation.
Yeah. And does it apply to things like communication with a buyer as well? If you're a salesperson thinking about, if a buyer prefers email, for example, in a certain formal style, maybe you can adapt your style to be more formal. If they prefer a more chatty phone call, you can pick up the phone to them a bit more often. Is that kind of leveraging that same bias as well?
Definitely. I think, it's about kind of meeting that person in the middle, and you should just be able to, good salespeople are able to look at the person that they're working with, the client that they are working with, and respond to them. I think that only comes when you are paying attention to the buyer. But definitely great examples, I think. Even the form or tone is such a good one. But even things like, once you get to know your client, even matching, it could be something like how formal you even dress, like to make yourself, match their style, so you're not completely, different.
Yeah, definitely. So based on those biases we've just talked about them, what would your advice be to a salesperson who's wanting to make the best possible impression with maybe a new prospect in the first 5 minutes or so of meeting them?
Yes, good question. I think a lot of these biases that I've just spoken about, they happen sometimes even before you've opened your mouth. So before you've even had a conversation with the client, like ideally you have a good relationship with these people, but I think what you should be doing is considering your first impressions and making them count. So I think thinking about your body language, thinking about the, how you're presenting yourself, so you can avoid those snap judgments or control what you want people to think about you. I think matching people's energy and being attuned to them, again, once you're having these conversations. I think those are probably things I'd recommend.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds sensible, all of them. Thank you, Simone. I think that is really insightful. For salespeople, particularly thinking about how they want to, as you say, almost control the narrative a little bit with how they are first perceived by potential clients, potential buyers. Let's take a little look at managers now and what they can learn from science. So is it a slightly different angle for sales managers, do you think, Reuben?
It's a different angle, a different point of view, but it's using a lot of the same psychology, a lot of the same principles. That was really interesting to listen to. Like, I learned a lot just sitting there. And what I was thinking about, almost as a summary, is that what it comes down to is how well do you understand people? So how well do you understand yourself if you're a salesperson? Or how well do you understand the buyer if you're a salesperson? Do you know your own biases? Do you know their biases? How can you think about their first judgment, their snap judgment? All those kind of things are about how we understand ourselves or someone else. If you're a manager, it's how do you understand yourself or someone else. The someone else is your salesperson and your team. and yourself is about your impact on them, or perhaps your own sales performance. But I think to hone in on a sales manager as a people manager and thinking about what's their impact on pipeline and targets and revenue via their people, via their team, and that's what it comes down to. What's the psychology that you understand? What's the science you can lean on to motivate, to inspire, to build a really high-performing team? Like, these are all, and I'm coining this now, but like tangible intangibles. It's intangible. You can't actually look at the high-performingness of your team when thinking about their psychology, but you absolutely can do something about it. So you can't see it. There's no green lines between all the 5 people to show you how happy they are, but there are some targets and some figures we can see, and there are some things we can do about it.
So staying on that thread then, how can sales managers leverage science to build that high-performing team that you're talking about?
Oh, what a question. How long do you have? I think the biggest thing to think about is motivation and inspiration and building a team. I think when it comes to building a team, there's values, there's purpose. It doesn't quite sound like science, but it's definitely a science. Like thinking about having a combined set of values and a combined set of behaviours that we agree as a team are how we behave. And I don't mean holding a door open for someone, but I mean immediately after a sales call with somebody, sending those actions straight away. Like, that's an agreed upon behaviour, or it's an agreed upon value that we have as a team, that we're creative and fun.
Is that
energetic.
science though?
Is it science though?
Is that just having a set of behaviours and values?
I think values just about come into science, because I think it plays on the people's psychology in a team that they are then accountable. And things like the principle of reciprocity, which is a psychological principle, that if you see someone else do it, you're inclined to do it too and reciprocate. So while the importance, aka of values, isn't scientific, it's driven by the science and psychology of who we are in a team.
Or managers can use science to help embed those values, maybe?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So that's kind of the team orientation. I think if you look at people and individuals within those teams, it starts to become motivation, and it starts to become a big debate of, do you want people to be motivated intrinsically, aka they love their job, they want to be there, they love the work they do, or do you want them to be motivated extrinsically? Bonuses, commission, targets, numbers, rewards.
So how can sales managers balance kind of the psychology of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation?
It's a tricky one to answer because there's so many different ways of doing it. So I spoke to quite a few people about this when I wrote my article, and everyone gave a different answer. And what it made me realise, and I kind of validated this by reading other articles people have written about the topic, within different contexts and different environments, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation will hold different value. So if you're on the trading floor in a corporate bank, extrinsic motivation is slightly more common. Your environment and your context really encourages it. The people in there probably are driven more by extrinsic motivation perhaps than intrinsic, and that suits that environment to some extent. Now, they totally still need intrinsic motivation, but if you look at a really purposeful workplace where people are selling, but what they're selling is something they really believe in, maybe they're selling some sort of charity or world aid or somewhere in between, you can use intrinsic motivation a lot more because the context and environment they're in allows it. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So the debate, again, it keeps going, like beyond your environment and beyond your context, you have to start looking at your people. What are their intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, and how do you balance that? So you start big picture. What's my environment? What's my workplace? What are our current reward schemes? What are our current promotion schemes? All these kind of big picture things that as a sales manager you can't really control. And then you hone in on what you can control, which is your people and how you motivate them. So I learned actually from one of our directors that he really well understands how his team is motivated. So he knows that some members of the team are looking for more extrinsic rewards and other members are looking for more intrinsic. Some might be looking for personal progression. Some might be looking for career, growth, all that sort of thing. Others might be looking for that, for sure, of course. while maybe focusing more on some extrinsic rewards. And both are okay. Both are totally fine. Both are needed. But what he does really well is he recognises that and he plays to the person.
So it's more about knowing how your team members are motivated and thinking about how you can then leverage that to get better results out of them.
Yeah, I should have put it that way. It's exactly that, yeah.
So I think, thank you, Reuben. That's a really nice summary for kind of managers. And are there any tips that you would maybe give managers who are looking to maybe up how they use, I guess, the psychology or the behavioural science you were talking about to help motivate their team? Any sort of like parting words that you'd give them, things to try?
Parting words, and I got this from someone I spoke to from my article, is go and speak to your team members. Go and ask them what motivates you. I think when thinking about some psychology or a behavioural science tip or trick, it gets a bit more difficult. Nothing immediately comes to me, partly because I don't think there are any behavioural science silver bullets per se. And I think often it just does come down to understand that person.
And Simone, how about for you? If there's one thing that you want salespeople to take away from what you were talking about earlier, what would that be?
I'm kind of going to jump on what Reuben said here, but because listening to him speak just kind of, I think, summarizes you need to know who you're selling to, know the client, know the buyer, know the person if you can, and then everything else should come easily. But the more you know them, the more authentic you can be.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today. It's been a really interesting episode. I feel like we've gotten to the heart of a lot of those scientific behaviours that we were talking about and the psychology and neuroscience parts that we were hoping to cover. So thank you for your insight and for your wisdom and in often cases your research. Thank you. And listeners, if you enjoyed that, please do make sure that you like and subscribe and we will see you next time.